Blinded by the Light is directed by Gurinder Chadha, and it tells the story of Javed, a British Pakistani Muslim teenager living in Britain in the late 80s who is very dissatisfied with his life, but when he's introduced to the music of Bruce Springsteen, he becomes inspired to make changes to improve his life and achieve his dreams of being a writer. If you see my other videos, you know I don't know music well, so I do not care one way or the other about Bruce Springsteen. The film started off pretty good. I thought the lead character was sympathetic and likable. He was realistically shy, and his life situation was frustrating in a real life way as well. He doesn't really fit in. The one friend he does have seems like the kind of friend you make when you're younger, and then you become very different people, but you stay friends out of a feeling of obligation. This friend seems to have the sort of life and freedom that he wants, which includes success with the girls, a helpful and liberal father, and he's able to follow his passion, which is music. But the main source of Javed's displeasure is his overly traditional and demanding father, who is trying to do his best for his family, but is just too concerned with keeping up appearances and maintaining a Pakistani way of life rather than opening up to ideas of British flexibility. He's the kind of father who takes all the money you earn and doesn't want you to have things like girls or parties or even hobbies in your life to distract you, just to study, work hard, get a job, and the only real jobs are doctor, lawyer, or accountant. I thought the film captured that feeling that everyone else seems to be out there living their lives and making it look easy when you seem to be stuck behind like an invisible sheet of glass, just not able to be a part of it. I could relate a lot to the Javed character, but only at the beginning of the film. So a classmate introduces him to Springsteen's music, and it's a very effective scene when he first listens to it. There's a cool storm happening, and the lyrics of the songs appear as text on the screen, and you can really feel the effect it's having on Javed. And after that, he starts being a bit more bold, doing small things like letting his teacher read his poetry and trying to get a position on the school paper, and that's all good. But then, in my opinion, it just goes too far with the Springsteen thing. He starts constantly quoting the lyrics. Everything he writes is about Springsteen. Everything he says is about Springsteen. There's a girl he likes, and he suddenly starts singing Springsteen out loud to her in the middle of a crowded street. And the way it's done, you think it's going to turn out to be a fantasy sequence with her smiling and everyone on the street singing along and dancing with each other. But it's not. It's really happening, and it's cringe-inducing to watch. There are a lot of these embarrassing displays. The worst is an entire sequence where they break into the school radio office to put on a Springsteen record, and they lock the door behind them, Andy Dufresne style. So the music plays over the loudspeakers in the school, and then there's a 5-minute long sequence of Javed, the girl, and his friend running around and laughing with big smiles on their faces, dancing in the street, and in the middle of a football match disrupting all the players, and it's just so lame. Again, it all feels like it's supposed to be a fantasy scene like you'd see in a musical, but it isn't. It's actually happening. There are so many scenes of our lead running down the street with a big smile on his face while Springsteen music plays. His relationship with the girl is weird. It doesn't really set up that he really likes her until he starts singing to her in public, and then he asks her out, and cut to the end of their first date after they've been to what sounds like it was probably some kind of rave, and now she likes him. And that would be okay, but all he does is quote Springsteen lyrics to her. Imagine you met a person and all they talked about ever was a singer. One specific singer. A singer that you don't care about, and they just constantly listened to their music and quoted them at you. That would annoy the shit out of me, and that's exactly what started to happen while I was watching this. After a while, I was just like, alright, I get it, shut the fuck up about Bruce Springsteen. Springsteen music plays constantly, and the lyrics continue to appear on the screen as text like they did in the first scene, but with less and less effect. The guy who introduced him to Springsteen seemed like a cool character at first, but then he becomes nothing more than a fan of Springsteen. And that's all he's got going on. It doesn't help that you can never tell when the music is diegetic or not, and there's almost never a music-free scene, which lessens the impact of the songs. The cast is good, but the lead starts to get grating after a while. Haley Atwell is fine in a pretty small part as an understanding and encouraging teacher who is far too hot, but none of the teenage boy characters ever react to her in that way. Dean Charles Chapman, who played Tommen in Game of Thrones, is actually pretty good as the enviable friend, but I think the best was probably the father character played by Kulvinder Gear, because he has to be comedic and serious and heartfelt and even pretty broken at times. It might be because he just gets to play a more complicated character, because a lot of the side characters, especially the girlfriend, the teacher, and the other Springsteen friend, aren't really explored all that much. The scenes with Javed's family are the best scenes because that's where all the conflict and drama happens. They try to inject drama into other areas by having the two friends fall out for some reason and conjuring an argument with a girlfriend out of thin air, but it just feels forced and phony. It's also too long. It just seems to ramble on, and it doesn't have a very tight or clever script. It tries to be about too many things, like the racism element at first feels like it's just part of the setting and some extra thing that the lead has to put up with, but then there are these specific important plot points about a mosque and attacks and protests that are brought up but don't really go anywhere. A lot of things aren't resolved by the end of the film, not even thematically, like the situation with the girlfriend or the racist element or the father's unemployment. Some things that happen feel so convenient, like Javed winning a writing competition and the prize just so happens to be a trip to Bruce Springsteen's hometown in New Jersey. There was a story beat about the father's car not running properly, so all the family have to get out and push the car to get the engine to start, that I was certain that they were going to pay off in the final scene with Javed driving the car and the father being the one who pushes it, but it didn't happen. It seemed like such an obvious setup for some symbolical meaning, and they just dropped the ball. The whole thing would have worked better if it was just a lot funnier, because it really isn't funny. There's one funny scene where the dad embarrasses him in front of the school, and that's the scene that they put in the trailer, but other than that there were only maybe a couple of funny bits. Or if they had given it more of a fantasy element where he was imagining all the dancing and the singing so he wouldn't come across as such a weirdo. I'm not a person who feels fandom like this. I have things and artists that I really like, but I've never ever felt the compulsion to meet those people or to wait in line at midnight for the release of a new game or the opening of a new film. And I've always considered that a good aspect of my personality. I can wait a couple of days to see that thing I really want to see, and see it at my leisure, so I don't relate to Javed's all-encompassing love of this one thing, Bruce Springsteen. Whether it was Springsteen or something else, but I've definitely now heard Born to Run more times than I ever cared to, and if I never hear it again, I'd be pretty okay with that. I did like how the music and the lyrics of Springsteen's songs actually do have relevance to the plot of the film, which is something I thought was really lacking in Yesterday with the Beatles music. I'm going to give Blinded by the Light a C. I get the feeling that if you are part of a Pakistani descent or grew up in a Pakistani house, you might appreciate the story here more than the average moviegoer, but I could see most people seeing this one as just a nice movie. If you love Springsteen, then you'll probably like it a lot. I just didn't get much entertainment from it. It has good themes about following your dreams and the consequences of following them, which I liked, but there were too many times where I was either shaking my head in confusion at something someone said or did, or just like squirming with embarrassment for fictional people being weird in public. Thank you very much for watching my review. Please like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at LukeDoTheMovies, comment down below and let me know if you've seen Blinded by the Light, what you thought of it, liked it, disliked it, agree or disagree with any of my points, or if you have any points of your own. I'll be back soon with more reviews, and I will see you then.